He wasn't meant to become the story. The day belonged to a rare requiem and to a woman whose life had been lived in a different key, Catholic liturgy in a royal frame, willow over lacquer, a family walking slowly because grief insists on it. And then, outside Westminster Cathedral, a profile that has not stood comfortably near the crown for years stepped into the light. A ripple moved through the crowd like a gasp with edges. Phones rose. Lenses leaned. The Duke of York had arrived, with his ex-wife beside him, with a police escort, with a face that, minutes later, would bend into a smile the cameras would not forgive. One moment of brightness became 1,000 captions. As mourners filtered back into the weather, someone said something that was not for broadcast. He answered with a chuckle that would have passed unnoticed in any other week. Beside him, Sarah Ferguson tilted in, the visual grammar of familiarity. Near them, too near for comfort, the Prince of Wales stepped into the same frame. The contrast did the rest. Where most faces held the day's weight, one looked relieved of it for a breath, and in that breath a narrative hardened, cheerful amid solemnity, caught on the cathedral steps, adjacent to the air. Optics don't ask for context, they take what they want and leave the bill behind. If the whispers that raced ahead of the motorcade are right, that bill landed at Kensington with a thud. Furious is the word friends used, the kind you choose when irritation stops being a private eye-roll and becomes policy. The heir, they say, has spent months drawing a thin, bright line through the public diary. No surprise photographs, no proximity that can be clipped into an illusion of rehabilitation, no mixing of frames that makes the future of the institution share oxygen with the past that still clings. A funeral redraws every guest list in blood and vows, that truth sits next to another one that is colder. The camera doesn't care why you're in the same doorway. It just cares that you are. There is history in the background that never quite goes quiet. Patronages lost, military titles removed, a civil case settled in 2022 without admission of liability after years of allegations he has always denied. The contour remains even as headlines move on. Add a murkier personal ledger whispered in drawing rooms long before any court filings, a reputation for rudeness to the young woman who would someday be the Princess of Wales, a coolness remembered and not forgiven, and you begin to understand why a single frame can unspool old resolve. When the line you've drawn is inches thick and the world still manages to step over it, anger stops looking like temperament and starts looking like boundary maintenance. From the king's side, the posture is different and just as comprehensible, inclusion as kindness, courtesy as default setting, the reflex of a brother who cannot forget that families outlive fashion. That instinct, make room, keep the peace, let them come, collides with a different arithmetic, the one the heir must do on behalf of tomorrow: brand damage, public patience, the cost of turning private forgiveness into public pictures. A monarch lives in years, an heir lives in decades. You could feel the two timelines scraping against each other in the way the day breathed. Every angle of the scene amplified the scrape. Westminster Cathedral's Byzantine vastness turns expressions into icons, a raised eyebrow there reads like a paragraph. The wicker coffin spoke in grace, the piper's lament stitched this farewell to another, the wreath written in Yorkshire roses and yew from childhood made the day feel anchored and exact. Against that background, levity is a shard of glass. Not a crime. Not a scandal. A shard. And shards, by design, cut. The timing made the cut feel worse. Hours later, the royal family would pivot to a different register entirely: Windsor's precise welcome, the carriage procession, the state banquet built to turn geopolitics into choreography. Soft power at full volume, with the Waleses as the opening measure. It is one thing to manage a high-voltage arrival when every line in the frame is clean, it is another to do it with a fresh clip ricocheting across feeds, dragging the narrative back toward a man the palace has worked hard to position in the polite margins. In a week this dense, any stray spark looks like sabotage, even if it isn't. Ambushed, some called it, the kind of word you reach for when a carefully constructed perimeter suddenly feels porous. Was it? Or was it the messier truth that funerals are where all the compartments leak, public-private, past-future, institution-family, and that the only control anyone truly has is over their own face? That question will not be answered on the record. It will be answered in scheduling decisions you can only read in negative space. Who stands where when the next camera blinks, whose name falls off an order of service, whose car is asked to arrive 5 minutes earlier so two paths don't cross. For the Prince of Wales, this is not petty optics. It is the central task, to make the future feel credible by removing anything that dilutes it. The rules are simple and unkind. Don't let adjacency become endorsement. Don't let family duty draft behind public grace. Don't let a single second on a cathedral step feed a storyline you've spent years convincing people to abandon. In another dynasty at another time, these decisions would be handled with a bell and a whispered instruction. In this one, they are handled by the refusal to be photographed. And for the Duke of York, his defenders say a funeral is not a PR stunt but a rite, and that a nervous laugh in cold air is a human reflex, not a campaign. They are not wrong about funerals. They are not wrong about reflexes. But public life is arithmetic, not metaphysics. When you carry that much historical charge into a shot, you do not own the meaning of your expression, the room does. The room, this week, was already full. The saddest part of the day is the part that will outlast all of this. The service itself, executed with care that felt like love, a royal house lending its walls to a faith one of its own had chosen and cherished, a family walking behind willow instead of lacquer because gentleness sometimes belongs on the shoulders that carry grief. That was the story. It will be the story tomorrow, and the next day, and when the week's other pageant has faded into silver polish and dust. The smile will thin back into noise. The fury, if it was as sharp as the whispers claim, will file itself under lesson learned. But the lesson cuts both ways. The palace will double-lock the perimeter around the heir's image, proximity will be engineered more ruthlessly, the invisible inches between two names will be measured like glassware. And inside the family, a quieter conversation will be had about the difference between forgiving and forgetting, about the cost of generosity when cameras stand at the door, about whether the instinct to include can coexist with the obligation to protect. It can. It must. But it will not happen by accident. By nightfall, Windsor had done what Windsor does, compressed drama into ceremony and waved it into obedience. The carriages rolled, the band played, the toasts tried to say everything without saying anything that can't survive the morning. The heir smiled the smile he uses when the weather is complicated and the job is not. The princess wore poise like armor and warmth like a lamp. The king's profile softened into one the country recognizes as home. And somewhere in the edit bay of public opinion, a choice was made, to keep the day about the woman it was meant to honor, and to let a single frame be only that, a single frame. Still, the line has been redrawn a fraction deeper. If reports of fury feel credible, it's because the stakes are not abstract. The future cannot afford accidental endorsements or sentimental shortcuts. Not now, not on weeks like this, not when the monarchy is required to be both human and exact at the same time. The heir is telling the story of what comes next. He has every right to insist on clean pages.